Oh.
After we left Plaszow, they took us to the camp, which was on the hill, which was a former was a cemetery. It was called Jerusalemska, where the famous Get was the commandant, and he was known. He killed unbelievable people. It's just for nothing he can take out his revolver, his gun, and shoot people.
This was still part of Plaszow?
No, this was opposite. Ours was one side of the road from Jelichka. In the Jerusalemska was on a hill, the opposite of the road.
But just across?
Yeah, from the road. You could see, but it was quite a distance.
And Getz was only in charge of the other one on the other side?
Yes, but he sometimes we were afraid he was a higher rank than Miller, our commandant.
And
he assassinated.
So, and when did you go over to this one?
After the Yom Tov in 1943, when they liquidated Plaszow, we walked over to the Jerusalemska, to this camp. By the gate there was someone, I think a doctor, which he took out people who think he thought that they are not healthy enough. They selected them and they were killed. So there was one boy, I was a neighbor, Lizaran Pfeffer. He was like 4 years older than me, and he was a very fine boy, a Talmud Chacham, and very, and he was taken out on the entrance, but it's selected. He didn't look healthy enough. But we were put in one room, and we didn't know what's going to happen to us.
How many people were you about?
Hundreds of people were like standing room and with everybody his packages, and we were there one day in the. I think the second day in the morning, it was very early.
So you spent the night in that room with
yes.
people?
And Gert came in with his outstretched gun, and everybody was pulling back. We were afraid, but he told us we're going to be sent to Skarzysko, which is working camp, the ammunition camp. From there they took us to the trains. I don't remember how long it took, the journey, but it wasn't today. I guess from Krakow to Skarzysko would have been a 2 hours train journey, but we arrived there, it was already dark.
Same day?
Yes.
And Skarzysko is in Poland?
Yeah. Where the Skarzysko was ammunition fabric from the Polish time. But the Germans went ahead and add a lot of buildings and this. They
expanded?
They expanded the production with everything in height, because they needed weapons for the Russian front. So I remember we got to at night to there. We have to jump out from the trade from Chronique Massa, the
train car,
Massa, I mean, not
the stations?
no, Chronique Massa. I mean, not cars that
Cargo.
cargo, yes, cargo. This, which opens the door, and you have to. We didn't have any ramp. You had to jump down from the opening, and down there were the Ukrainian guardsmen in Skarzysko, because the Germans as people to guards. Well, the Ukrainian who became assessed, like, and the leaders were German, but all over in Poland, the Ukrainians they were the guards, and they were standing and hitting everybody who jumped down. And then they divided some people went to, like my sister's Camp A, some Camp B, and Camp C. They were all, the all camps were separated with
barbed wire,
and they had a separate structure.
So your sisters were in Camp A, and where were you?
And I was in Camp C. A was the production where they made the bullets, you know, from small to artillery, and other things from the steel they made there. In Camp C they sent to fill it up with explosives. So the first thing, my sisters went to Camp A and I to Camp C. The first thing that hit you when you camped, the barracks were like in a forest setting. The whole camp was like the bunkers were to keep the explosive was in the bunkers and half buried in the ground. And then there was those buildings where they used to pour the explosive to the shells. But you saw the people who looked yellow, and they were working. It was called in Poland pikrin, which they produced their mines, which from a yellow powder, and they never could wash off the powder. Even it was unbelievable to look at those yellow people, and then the smell was. I remember the first soup that I got. It was bitter because from the powder, from the explosive. But
you could taste it in the food.
But later I could eat even a ton of the soup. It didn't matter, but this was a terrible impression from the first camp, from Krakow to there. The Jewish policemen were different. We were 5 boys from Żmigród. Somehow we were assigned to the loading, to the transport column, to transport Machlaka.
Division.
In the Jewish leader Mordechai, I still remember, gave us the speech when he first took over us. He said, "I'm already here a long time, and I buried already 3 transport, and I'll bury you too. This was the greeting from the Jewish leader. But I think I already talked about him. At the end, he was the one who didn't come. He the one who didn't live through, because when they liquidated the camp, all those coppers and policemen, they knew that they're gonna have to go to Germany, and they mostly had girlfriends, because in Skarzysko, if you had what to eat, you got a girlfriend, and they didn't want to part, and so they thought that they were thinking that the Russians were already close to the Warsaw, and they were from the vicinity there. Most of them ran away.
Hoping that the Russians would come before.
Yeah, and they bribed the guards. Somehow they opened up the fence, and whoever, I think I talked about it, who could go out, everybody could go out, but those who ran away were caught. Most of them were at the same night killed. Every peasant, Polish peasant who brought a Jew, he got 5 kilos sugar. So even if they managed to evade the German, the Polish peasant gave them, brought them to the Germans. But let me, but this division, transport, was a very hard work. We had to load and unload the wagons. They used to bring in the empty shells with argazim, with the explosives. The boxes, wooden boxes, they had the explosive throttle, and we used to unload, and then when it came the evening, to load all the bullets.
The shells when they were full?
Yes. This was what our job is.
So at first you took the empty shells and the crates of the explosives in the morning, and then after
the afternoon, and then
you were taking back the full shells.
Yes, the load back. And some of those shells was artillery shells, 152 millimeter, which weighed like over 100 pounds. Only 300 shells we used to load in one car.
This was a train car that you were loading into?
Yeah, only train cars. But it was a very hard job. And
you were loading them just by hand?
By hand. So, in the Polish masters and the Polish foremen, I've never seen such anti-Semitic people. They used to hit and make fun of us. They killed Mamish, a few from our division. They hit them so hard that the next day they died in the middle of the night. Who knows from what? So I'll never forget. It was a winter night, and the Friday night, and the snow was falling so hard that they had to push. Oh, besides, there were railroads that from one factory to other, or to the warehouses, that you by hand you pushed wagons. You loaded, and from one
And these wagons were on the rails? They were just hand
small
pushed?
rails, hand pushed in the snow. It was at night, and we had to unload and push the wagons to a warehouse. And the snow was falling so hard, and we walked. It was and the race was blocked almost. In the Polish, it was Friday night, and the Polish foreman used to tell us, now you used to eat white bread and eat chicken, and try to make us feel good. I mean, this how not only did that we suffered, but he tried to make us feel good. So, but a lot of people didn't survive. I was lucky that my sisters was in work A, and from time to time they used to send me bread, a loaf of bread. In this way, I had additional food besides the food that was given out. Was only, I think, 250 gram bread. And the bread was like, you could have taken the bread and like smear it, was wet, and smear it on the walls. Such a very poor quality bread, but still we didn't have enough, and people who couldn't have additional food didn't survive. A lot of, I mean, from our transport, a lot of them died. I remember Zmigot, or people, a few that I remember. In others, I made there. And the end was we were there until like let me remember when the Germans got to the Vistula. I think was after when Hitler they tried to assassinate Hitler and his headquarters on the Russian front. And then when the front was near, one Sunday they assembled, we were in work and we were hurried back home, and they made a roll call. The whole camp had to line up on the appeal place, and then there was a selection too. I was lucky, I still had a nice jacket, so I put it up, and the master from the transport column took out a few people. He went through with the leader of the camp, and a few people were taken out. In Skarzysko, they had a range where they tried out ammunition, a fire range, Strzelnica, what it's called in Polish. And when those people who were sick or condemned, they took them there and they killed them in those fire ranges. This Sunday, I think it was unteachable.
1944.
Yes.
So you were there for about 3/4 of a year?
Yes. In there we were a few days, and then in that night when they from the roll call, this man opened the gate and everybody could run out, and most of the elite with Eisenberg, he was the commander of this camp, left, and Markovichova, which is she was from the first one. In the old, the all got killed. None of those who were. Oh, I met one person after the war. He told me he's the only survivor. He used to be a policeman in Plaszow, a very nice guy. He told me most of them got killed. From Eva's town, she had in friends of her were tailors in this camp. Tailors had it very good because the guards and the Germans used to bring them, they got food. There were 3 brothers, and they went back to units, to villages where they thought they had Polacks who they thought they're the best friend, but when they got there, they killed them, and none of them survived. But after a few days, we were loaded and open.
So you were a few days still in the camp after the selection. You were still in Plaszow.
2 days. I don't remember in Skarzysko, like 1 or 2 days, and we were loaded on open wagons and sent to Soleil near Piotrków. This when we got to Piotrków, and it was very hot and without water. And the firemen from the houses, we walked to the stayed overnight in the court from the jail, because next day they took us to Soleil, where we walked on German fortification. We digged along the river, and now a new fortification. This where we were a few months, but the work this was the most terrible camp that I was all the time. First of all, the powder that was called trottel was so bitter. When you we used to unload those wooden boxes and then load back, you could feel the dust from it was terrible, but not too many survived from our transport. I don't know how I survived because of my sisters. I got additional bread and I could buy a soup because lunchtime they used to bring soup to the workplace, and this was, and they gave the portion bread in the evening. In the morning they used to, I think they gave coffee, but another thing, there wasn't any shower there. In order to shower, you had to go to Belka. So people really used to walk on Sunday, but most other people who didn't work used to line up Sunday and they used to go. It was like, I don't remember, like a mile to go to the Belka, and there they used to take a shower. But the shower, they took your clothing, and they used to get through to a cleansing through the steam. They used to get to kill all the because terrible. In this camp you couldn't keep clean. People used to have lice, and you could have washed only with cold water.
Even in the winter.
And no warm water, no shower. Okay. And how long is it?